Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate.
Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and good evening. It's my proud privilege today to be addressing this August gathering on a subject of critical importance to all of us. Let me first offer my sincere thanks and gratitude for this opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, I make no pretense about my intellectual credentials, but may I humbly say that I have the honor of commanding an army which has achieved great successes against violent extremism and terrorism, of course at a huge cost and sacrifice. My perspective would therefore be that of a soldier and not that of an intellectual or a politician. Let me say from the outset that the present jihadism is a misnomer. Jihad is a highly evolved concept that underlines myriad struggle against tyranny of all types. Muslims are taught that control of self is the most elevated form of jihad. There is also a saying of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, that the best of jihad is a word of truth in the face of a tyrant ruler. On the other hand, qatal, an aspect of armed jihad, comes at the lowest end of the spectrum of actions and beliefs that comprise the concept of jihad and can only be sanctioned by a state authority and nobody else. However, there is no denying the fact that a powerful concept such as jihad can be easily misused for propagating extremism and terrorism, particularly as many Muslims world over are not only feeling alienated, but disowned, targeted, and devoid of positive expression. Same is true for the concept of caliphate, which is more of a nostalgic response rather than the actual possibility for most Muslims. Ladies and gentlemen, in Pakistan, the notion of caliphate has not found any traction, but jihad has definitely been used to radicalize fairly large tracts of population. However, this phenomenon is not a recent creation or started after 9/11. The Frankenstein was actually created by the liberal free world with a willing but myopic cooperation from our side after the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979. Therefore, we all are responsible for making the world population in general and the Muslim population in particular hostage to this extremist ideology. Times have surely changed since the noon of March 10, 1982, when President Ronald Reagan dedicated the March 22nd launch of Columbia Space Shuttle to the valiant Afghan Mujahideens or Jihadis and termed their struggle against the Soviet occupation forces as a representation of the man's highest aspiration for freedom. When I was young, Pakistan was a normal country as any other country in the world. Jacqueline Kennedy flew to Karachi. The Beatles visited us. Queen Elizabeth went to the Khyber Pass to chat with the tribesmen. We were a favorite tourism destination for many. We were hosting World Cups of hockey and cricket, besides many other multinational events. World Bank termed Pakistan in 1963 as one of the most progressive and dynamic developing countries in Asia. The 70s were nothing less than a disaster for us, but even the separation of eastern part of our country and the political upheavals thereafter did not change the society as deeply as the event of 1979, the year the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan and the Iranian Revolution happened the next door. It was only then that we started learning that we were not only Muslims, but Sunnis and Shias. It was also the time that we were drawn to conviction of fighting Soviet invasion and also challenging communist ideology with another ideology. With the able intellectual assistance of the free world, a syllabus was designed in one of the Western universities for madrasas, wherein jihad was fed to young minds in a concentrated dose without context or explanation. An exception was created using a self-defense clause to justify declaration of jihad by non-state actors. Young men were recruited from all over the world, radicalized, and then left and disowned after they had delivered us the success. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for a long lesson on history. But while it is a history for you, it is still very much a live issue for us back home. As fairly large number of people are radicalized, armed, and empowered politically and ideologically. They cannot be wished away just because we don't like them anymore. Please note, we are harvesting what we sowed 40 years back. So it will be a while before this scourge is eliminated in totality. But first, let us stop calling it jihadism, as it is nothing else but terrorism. With this rather long context, let me now come to the story of Pakistan's struggle against extremism, terrorism, and so-called jihadism. Pakistan Army has waged a relentless and bloody fight against terrorism and violent extremism at a monumental human and material cost. Over 35,000 Pakistanis have lost their lives. Over 48,000 are critically wounded or disabled. Financial cost exceeds US $250 billion, only a fraction of which is actually shared by our global partners. Today, I can say with pride and conviction that there are no organized camps on our side of the border. However, presence of terrorists of various hues and colors cannot be ruled out. We still have their active and sleeper cells who are hiding in mountains, border towns, and 54 refugees camps besides some major towns and cities. For your information, of the last 130 terrorist attacks in our border areas last year, 123 were conceived, planned, and executed from Afghanistan. We understand their predicament, therefore we do not blame them. But instability in Afghanistan is also hurting us badly, and it is happening despite the presence of the most powerful alliance in Kabul. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, Afghanistan's success of 2003 was lost when resources were pulled out prematurely for war in Iraq. Today, after spending more than 1.4 trillion, the situation can best be described as a stalemate. But to my reckoning, the cause of stalemate is not Haqqani Network or TTA, Tariq-e-Taliban Afghanistan, as they had almost been defeated 13 years ago. It was the pursuit of a wrong strategy which led to their resurrection. Let me say that the popular assertion of TTA not being defeated in totality due to presence of part of their leadership in Pakistan is not correct or whole truth. We defeated Al-Qaeda, Tariq-e-Taliban Pakistan, and Jamaat al-Ahrar, while their safe havens still exist in Afghanistan at a mere fraction of resources employed on the other side of the border. Now, instead of blame game, it is time for NATO and allies to conduct an audit and introspection to find out the causes of this stalemate. Ladies and gentlemen, in our war against terror, military operations were not the only thing that we were conducted. We realized very early that the complex problem of violent extremism could not be handled through military operations only. First and foremost, we generated public opinion to defeat the terrorist narrative. We also formulated the National Action Plan aimed at fighting terrorism and gradually rooting out extremism. We launched Operation Radul Fasad, eradication of the tumult, in 2017 with the aim of, firstly, targeted kinetic and enhanced law enforcement operations to locate and destroy the residual terrorist presence across the country. Second prong of our campaign comprises supporting the National Action Plan that involves better prosecution, policing, education reforms, along with curbing terrorist financing and hate speech. Equally important is our information prong aimed at discrediting the terrorist ideology, including the misuse of terms like jihad and caliphate. Most recently, 1,854 eminent Pakistani religious scholars representing all schools of thought within Islam teamed up to issue a resounding fatwa against violence, extremism, and terrorism in the name of religion, called the Message of Pakistan. It bans suicide bombing and jihad other than the one sanctioned by the state. Ladies and gentlemen, our successes have been made possible by the collective resolve of our entire nation. However, we are far from done. It is my sincere belief that Pakistan's lasting domestic peace hinges on peace and stability in Afghanistan. Therefore, despite our limited resources, we are trying our best to export peace to our neighbors in the West. Please remember, at times our efforts are curtailed by capacity and not by will. Pakistan and Afghanistan are sovereign countries. Both countries have a right to peace and progress. However, this will only be possible if our respective soils are not used against each other. In this regard, two aspects are important. Firstly, we still have nearly 2.7 million Afghan refugees in our country, whose concentrations are routinely used by TTA and Haqqani network to recruit, morph, and melt. It is time for these refugees to be repatriated with dignity. It is the only way we can ensure that no one is misusing our hospitality and soil for mischief in Afghanistan. This is possible at a fraction of the cost of war in Afghanistan, which is currently around $46 billion per year. Secondly, our borders with Afghanistan is highly porous. We have unilaterally taken many steps to ensure proper management of this border. We have raised tens of new border-specific units, built hundreds of new border surveillance posts, and have now started the process of fencing 2,300 kilometers of the border. We are putting scanners and biometrics at the border terminals to ensure that while common Afghans are facilitated, miscreants and terrorists are prevented or arrested. Furthermore, we are fully committed to the international consensus that political reconciliation is the only solution to the Afghan issue. While we are actively supporting the new U.S. study in the region, based primarily on kinetic approach, we are not leaving any stone unturned to try and do our best in bringing the parties of the conflict to the negotiating table. Ladies and gentlemen, despite the seeming frustration, very few countries have achieved as much that we have in our war against terror. With over 1,100 Al-Qaeda operatives killed and other 600 handed over to U.S., Pakistan is instrumental in disruption and decimation of Al-Qaeda from Afghanistan and Pakistan. But the struggle continues as the threat is morphing. Intelligence agencies of multiple countries have confirmed the ongoing relocation of fleeing Daesh fighters to Afghanistan. Being worst hit by perennial instability in Afghanistan, Pakistan has legitimate concerns about its new threat joining the roster of over 20 terrorist outfits. So far, we have been successful in denying any foothold to Daesh in Pakistan, but we are very concerned about its unchecked growth in the neighborhood. We need to counter the threat much more proactively through collaboration and cooperation. The war against terrorism extremism will take some time before the world is free of it. Therefore, we all have to be patient and remain steadfast. We need to first counter terrorist narrative with a superior narrative before breaking their back. Unfortunately, we have not done enough in this regard. Finally, trust, cooperation, and sharing will work, and scapegoating won't. To conclude, ladies and gentlemen, let me say that the terrorists thrive on our division and feed on our inability to come together against them. I humbly call upon all of you to deny them these chinks in our collective armor. Please realize that it's a global problem and needs a global approach. Lack of focus and commitment and individual efforts won't take us anywhere. I thank you.
Thank you, General Bajwa, for very clear and direct comments for which we're all grateful. I want to now ask the...
Thanks for watching our video. Please subscribe to our channel and don't forget to press the bell icon.